All right. You can hear me okay? Just a second. Can you hear me all right? I can't hear you. I'm not muted. Okay. But you can hear me okay, huh? It doesn't. I don't know if I can hear everybody else. Hare Krishna. It's nice to see everybody here today. Just grab my mom. We have a very interesting discussion today. Okay. So let me just say a few prayers to begin. Gora Graganya Gana Gotra Goloruhadam Goranga Gudatama Gopyata Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami. Uttama Adhama Kichuna Bachila Jachia Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Emona Gauranga Hridoya Dariya Bola Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangera Namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Pranare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema Vidana Parama Pumata Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Sri Kriyat Kripaya Juri Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Risha Yustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunathabda Brajabala Bapahimam Vanshakalpatarubhishcha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I want to thank everybody very much for attending. They're advertising this as our third session about the Uttam Sishya, but yeah, it's the third session we gave, but the first one didn't really count because the internet crashed very soon in the discussion, and there was no recording of that. So this is actually our second session speaking about the Uttam disciples. What do we do with them? What relevance are they to us? We have that question. We want to understand who is the Uttam disciple because we want to come to that platform. And if we don't understand something about their qualities, how will we ever get there? But we can't imitate them. And we want to associate with them. In a lecture Prabhupada gave in November 12th, 1972 in Vrindavan, he said, if we do not associate with the advanced devotees, Uttama Adhikari, if we simply want to remain in the lowest stage of devotional service, then we are not making progress. Then we shall simply enjoy the material field without entering into the spiritual platform. So we want to associate with devotees who are more advanced. If we don't associate with more advanced devotees, how will we get Krishna? How will we make advancement? The Bhagavatam, 11th canto, chapter 2, text 45, defines an uttam, or in this case, an uttam sishya. Sarva bhuteshu ya pashyad bhagavad bhavam atmana bhutani bhagavat yatmani esha bhagavatottama. Prabhupada translates this: a person advanced in devotional service sees within everything the soul of souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Consequently, he always sees the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the cause of all causes, and understands that all things are situated in him. Today, in our world, there's a bit of a crisis going on. It's a health crisis. It's becoming an economic crisis. I've seen shops here in Jagannath Puri that have been shut for a year and a half, maybe 2 years now. And these are not wealthy people with large amounts of money in the bank. These are common people, so it's a crisis. But the devotees, it's someone who's an Uttam Sishya. He sees Krishna as the basic principle of everything. But someone who's not on that platform, then they're going to see the material nature behind everything. They're going to see, as Krishna in the 16th chapter, the Gita describes, that they only see lust in connection with everything. So they see something mundane. So we as devotees, we want to come to the platform of being an Uttam Sishya. An Uttama Adhikari, again, means someone who has Adhikar qualification. It doesn't mean they're situated on that platform. But how do we come to that platform? We have to have Shastriya Shraddha. The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu defines the Uttam. Shastra yukto chinipuna sarvata dhudhanishchaya prodha shraddho adhikari yasabhakta uttamo mate. That someone who knows Shastra very well and has firm conviction, Judha Nishchaya and Prodha Shraddha, firm faith, deep faith, it's not blind faith. That's the topmost devotee, the person who has the topmost qualification for getting bhakti. So we have to come to the point of having that Shastriya Shraddha, which means we have to hear from Gurudev. If someone's not hearing from Gurudev, and hearing from Gurudev doesn't mean you just sit in front of him and you take a pad of paper and a pen and you write down everything that he says, and maybe you record the lecture, or like one friend of mine many years ago, he memorized an entire lecture of his guru, word for word. It was a 45-minute lecture. The entire lecture he memorized. But how much did he understand of that? And I could see from some of his behavior later on, it didn't seem like he understood very much, because it was clear that his quality of faith wasn't so deep. Srila Prabhupada, in his purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 2271, he says that it should be understood that a Madhyamadikari, he's fully convinced of Krishna consciousness, but he can't support his convictions with Shastric evidence. A neophyte may fall down by associating with non-devotees because he's not firmly convinced and strongly situated. The second-class devotee, even though he can't support his position with Shastric reference, can gradually become a first-class devotee by studying the Shastras and associating with a first-class devotee. So this is why so many times the devotees in IYF, Tukaram Prabhu and others, they're telling you, study Shastra, study Shastra. Why? It's not just so that we can sell you a full set of books. That's not the purpose. The purpose is we want everyone to have this firm conviction. And without reading, without studying Shastra deeply, you're not going to develop this Prodha Shraddha. If you were comfortable just staying as a neophyte devotee and watching movies and talking to pretty girls and maybe enjoying sense gratification in different ways, You're comfortable with that. You don't want to associate with advanced devotees because they may chastise you. Then definitely you'll fall down. Prabhupada says, if the second-class devotee does not advance himself by associating with the first-class devotee, he makes no progress. There's no possibility that a first-class devotee will fall down, even if he mixes with non-devotees to preach. Conviction and faith gradually increase to make one an Uttama Adhikari, a first-class devotee. So this is the nature of an Uttam. They quote Shastra, and when there's a problem, when there's something going on, they see Krishna behind it. They're not angry persons trying to chastise the government, chastise the leaders in the society. Oh, there's this fault, it's your fault. Rather, they see Krishna behind everything. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in one article, he says that the symptom of someone who's been hearing the holy name has entered their ear, is they give up the aspiration to correct other people, because then they see that everybody's perfectly situated. Only one person's not perfectly situated, and that's myself, they see. And in that situation, they can actually help others. Because they're seeing Krishna. They're seeing Krishna in the holy name. They're seeing Krishna behind the pandemic. Who knows what's going on with the pandemic? It might be a bunch of demoniac leaders and scientists who are just trying to control people. It definitely might be. But a devotee, an Uttam Vaishnav, doesn't see that. He sees Krishna behind everything. I give the example sometimes that Gaurkishore Das Babaji, once he was in Navadvip, and a group of small children started teasing him and throwing stones at him. A very terrible thing. And Gaurkishore Das Babaji became angry. And he stopped, and he turned around, he started shouting and pointing his finger. And he said, Krishna, if you don't stop this right now, I'm going to tell your mother. He's not seeing those children. He's not angry with the children. If it happened to you or I, we might be thinking, where are their parents? I'm going to go and chastise their parents. Maybe their parents have some conspiracy against me. They have something against me. He's not thinking like that. He's seeing Krishna behind everything. And this is the quality of an Uttam disciple. They're hearing from Gurudev. Now, in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we're going to get a little technical, and then I have a lot of stories for you. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there are 3 categories of Uttam Adhikaris, Uttam disciples. Siddha Mahapurushas, who pursue the path of bhakti, who are Siddha, they're perfect. There are 3 types: Bhagavat Parshada Deha Prapta, Nidutta Kasai, and Murchita Kasai. Bhagavat Parshada Deha Prapta means someone who has given up their gross material body, and they realize they've obtained their Satchidananda Vigraha Swarup, that they've obtained their spiritual form in the spiritual world. They're the best of all the Uttam Bhagavats, and the example given is Devarshi Narad. Narad Muni, he's the best of those personalities. He's associating directly with the Lord. Sometimes he's going to Vrindavan. In Padma Purana, it says that Narad Muni once, he took bath in a particular koan and he became a gopi even. This is Bhagavat Parshada Deha Prapta. This person has attained Bhagavat Parshada Deha, the body, the Deha of a Bhagavat Parshada, an associate of the Lord. The second of the Siddha Mahapurushas, or the Uttam devotees, is a Nirdutta Kashai. The Nirdutta Kashai is someone who's given up all material impurities. They have a body made out of 5 elements, but there's no trace, no vasana, no material impressions, no sanskar within their hearts. They're called Nirdutta Kashai. They're the Madhyam Uttam Bhagavat. And the example given is Shukadev Goswami. Shukadev Goswami is the intermediate stage of the Uttam Bhagavat. And then there's a Murchita Kashai. The Murchita Kashai are the Siddha Mahapurushas who have some vasana, some trace of desire in their heart. some impressions, some samskars, which are based on the material mode of goodness. They're known as murchita kashai. Due to the influence of their practice of bhakti, the vasana, or the desires and impressions, the samskars that they have, they remain in a dormant or unconscious stage. And as soon as there's some favorable opportunity, then Krishna somehow causes their desires to be consumed and attracts them to his lotus feet. So these are the Kanishta Uttam Bhagavats, or the lowest, a preliminary stage of the Uttams. And the example given is Narad Muni again. Narad Muni is given as the example, the Bhagavat Parshada Deha Prapta and the Murchita Kashai, the topmost devotee, and also the Murchita Kashai, the Kanishta Uttam. And as a Kanishta Uttam is described in Narad in his previous birth as the son of a maidservant. He still had some vasana in his heart, which hadn't appeared, but that was there in him. So Narad Muni in his previous life didn't commit any offenses. Don't think that, oh, maybe I'm like Narad Muni. Don't think maybe I'm the Murchita Kashai. That might be me. The vasana in his case never rose, but it was there in a dormant state, unconscious state. His Kasai, or his impressions that he had, is Sattvika Kashai. He liked the peaceful atmosphere of the forest. Similarly, Bharat Maharaj was a Murchita Kashai. He's practicing Vaidhi Bhakti, and he's Sattvika Kashai. He's in the mode of goodness. So how do we come to this platform? We have to surrender. And that surrender, we need examples. We need to associate with elevated devotees without associating with them. How can we come to that platform? Right? You're in IYF, you're attending classes and things. If you're attending those classes and the only association you're getting is from some friends who like to drink and smoke marijuana or something and go to movies, but at the same time you like to be a devotee, that's nice. That's a good thing, right? You're going to the IYF programs and you're attending and everything. But if you're associating with those kind of persons, you're not going to make advancement. And sooner or later, Srila Prabhupada explains, you'll definitely fall down. That's why it's so important. Tukaram Prabhu, the devotees, they want to create a sangha, an association where you can come and get higher association. And what does higher association mean? I can associate with someone who's an Uttama Adhikari. But Prabhupada said, what is the value of the association of a mosquito with a great Vaishnava? The mosquito is just coming and drinking blood. He's not hearing. Association means that we hear. So we may not all be pure devotees, but we want to hear from Srila Prabhupada. We want to hear from pure devotees. We want to repeat what we've heard from pure devotees. We want to share that with each other. And we want to keep that foremost in our consciousness as being the cause of causes. We want to see that Krishna is the cause of everything. And a person who has that attitude, he's coming to the platform of being an Uttam Sishya. He has Uttama Adhikari, or the topmost qualification, because he's taking shelter of Shastra. He's hearing from Gurudev. He's not just making a show, but he's hearing from Gurudev. And the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, describe other qualities of such a person. They're completely surrendered. They come to this platform where they become as good as Krishna. It's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita Anjalila chapter 4. It's this text 192 and 193. Diksha Kale Bhakta Kore Atma Samarpan. Se Kale Krishna Tare Kore Atma Sam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Diksha Kale, at the time of initiation. Okay, it said that stay Kali at that time, Krishna tare kore atmasam. Krishna considers the devotee to be as good as himself. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense to me. I've seen many devotees
Hare Krishna,
get
Prabhuji.
initiated.
Prabhuji, your volume.
I've seen many devotees get initiated, myself included, and afterwards, I'm not on the platform of Krishna. Huh? We still have so much vasana, so much material desires. What's the problem? The verse says Diksha Kali, Bhakta Kori, and then there's a little clause, little important clause, Atma Samarpana. At the time of initiation, when a devotee fully surrenders, then Krishna accepts that person as good as himself. So it's not just that we take initiation, but we have to fully surrender. And how can that full surrender come? It comes when we have Drita Shraddha, first class faith. But that faith comes from Shastriya Shraddha, by associating with people who have faith in Shastra. If we associate with so many people on Facebook who are just complaining about everybody and the conspiracy of this and that, and why are they doing this to me? How are you going to get that Shastriya Shraddha? We want to associate with devotees who are always telling us, Bhagavan Anka Icha. This is Krishna's desire. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swam. Krishna is Bhagavan. Anadiradir Govinda. He's the course, the cause of all causes. We should see that. And that conviction comes by hearing Shastra and associating with advanced devotees who have that conviction. We're always seeing Krishna in that way. And for that devotee then, Sehi deha koreta chidananda moy, aprakrita dehe tana charana bhajoy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. So say deha kore tar chidanandamoy. When that devotee's body is transformed in a chidanandamoy, spiritual existence, at that time, in that aprakrita deha, that transcendental body, tamna charana bhajoy, then he can worship the Lord. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote in one lecture, he said that until we come to the platform of spirit, we can't render service. So that happens when we take initiation, but at the same time of initiation, we're practicing Atma Samarpana. We're practicing Saranagati. We completely surrender. It's not just a show, but we have to see Krishna behind everything. So I'd like to give a few examples now of the Murchita Kasai, the Nirutta Kasai, and the Bhagavat Lila Prapta Deha. First of all, the Murchita Kasai. There's one nice example given by Thakur Bhaktivinoda in his Jaiva Dharma. Two devotees whose names are Vijay Kumar and Brajanath. And they were nice devotees. There was some desire in them to get married. They had some vasana, but they didn't act on it. It was neutral. They received initiation from their guru at Srivas Anga at Navadvip. They took the dust from their Gurudev's feet. And then the two of them, they arranged for some special boga. They brought a large amount of boga offerings for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they requested that you please offer these things. They asked the Pujari to do that, to offer to the deities of the Panchatattva. And so then the Pujari offered the boga. They started doing kirtan with the Vaishnavas. And then they all sat down for prasadam. The conch shell and the bells are sounding and things. And they were singing that Boga Artrink song before they took prasadam. And then when other Vaishnavas heard the Harinam, this is time for prasadam now. And they all came for prasad. Some devotees are like that. Even in Jaiva Dharma, it's like that. But Brajanath and Vijay Kumar, first of all, they didn't want to sit down immediately. They were waiting. They wanted it to make sure that all the Vaishnavas are getting this Mahaprasad, this Mahaprasad. And they wanted to wait for the Mahaprasad, the remnants of their Gurudev and the Vaishnavas. But the senior devotees, they were telling him, hey, you're Grihastha Vaishnavas, we're going to be blessed by offering our obeisances to your lotus feet. They're not proud fellows. They're the most senior persons in the Sangha, but still they're giving respect to Vijay Kumar and Brajanath. But Vijay Kumar and Brajanath said, no, 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 you are great renounced Vaishnavas. It's not right. It's not appropriate. We'll be very fortunate if we can get some of your remnants, and it's going to be an aparad if we sit with you. And the senior Vaishnavas said, no, as far as Vaishnavism is concerned, there's no difference between a householder and a sannyasi. That we compare Vaishnavas only according to their bhakti, how much devotion they have. And the more advanced Vaishnava is someone who has deeper devotion for Krishna. So they started taking prasad, but Vijay Kumar and Brajanath, they wouldn't take prasad with them. They were forced to sit down with them, but they just kept the prasad in front of them. And some of the Vaishnavas who were taking prasad, they noticed this. And then they turned to Vijay Kumar and Brajanath's guru, his name was Raghunath Das, and they said, Maharaj, please, you have to be kind to your disciples, otherwise they're not going to take prasadam. So then when he heard that, their guru took some of the prasadam off his plate and he gave it to Vijay and Brajanath. And they took the remnants of his prasad with great faith. They said, Shri Gurave Namaha, my pranams to Gurudev, and they began to offer that prasadam. And while they were taking the prasadam, some of the Vaishnavas are calling out, hey, Sadhu Savaran, be careful, don't try to enjoy the Mahaprasad. Mahaprasad ki jai. And at that time, suddenly an amazing thing happened. And everyone who was sitting there had a vision, and they saw Sachi Devi, the mother of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They saw Sita, the wife of Srivas Thakur, the wife of Advaita Charya, and they saw Malini Devi, the wife of Srivas, bringing prasadam. And they saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sitting down along with all of his associates, taking that. So this is all going on in Shiva Sangha. Can you imagine? You have a big IYF festival, and you're taking prasadam, and all of a sudden you see Sachimata and Sita Thakurani and Malini Devi bringing prasadam, and then you see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates eating. When they saw that all the Vaishnavas who were there, they just became stunned, and the prasadam in their hands just dropped. And they were just staring, watching, and tears started coming down their face. And then after a short time, that Leela disappeared from their sight. And then they started looking and they said, did you see that? Did you see that? And they started crying and crying. And then they started taking the prasad and they said, this prasad, this is very, very special prasad. And they said, these two, this Brajanath and Vijay Kumar, they've gotten the mercy of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And for this reason, Gauranga Mahaprabhu has manifested his Leela in this festival today. And Brajanath and Vijay Kumar, they started crying. They said, we're worthless. Ami Dina Hina. We're wretched. We don't have anything. We don't know anything. We only see these things today by the mercy of our Gurudev and the Vaishnavas, and today our birth has become meaningful. So that we may see as an example of Murchita Kasai. And by the association of a very advanced devotee, some amazing things happen when someone comes to the platform of complete surrender. So we come now to the example of the Nirduta Kasai, someone who has some little vasana in their heart, but that Nirduta Kasai, he has a material body, but there's no trace of vasana. There's no material. They have the material body. In Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that he gives an example of a log of wood. If you burn a big piece of wood, a branch from a tree, and it completely burns, it's burned, there's nothing left to burn, but the form still remains. But if you touch it with your finger, then it falls into ashes. So this is like the Nirduta Kasai. There's no vasana, there's no material desires in their heart whatsoever. but they still have a material body. So an example we might give of the Nirduta Kashai is Ranti Dev. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, in the Anchalila, it's described the nature of an Uttam Sishya is that they give respect to everyone. Brahmanadi Kuku Chandala Anta Kori Dandavata Kori Beka Bahumanya Kori Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. It's said that such a devotee offers full obeisances, Dandavat Kori Beka, Bahumanya Kori, with no hesitation to all living entities, including Brahmanadi, Brahmans, etc., and Kukurs, dogs, and Chandalas, and Antakori, dog eaters. They give their respect to everyone. They're not mundane persons, because they understand that Krishna has entered the body of every living entity, and they understand that by Shastra. They understand that because they're associating with advanced devotees who see Krishna behind everything. The Chaitanya Charitamrita describes Uttamahana Vaishnava Habe Nirabhiman Jibe Samana Dibe Jani Krishna Adishtan Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Uttam Vaishnav, the Uttam Vaishnav, Habe Nirabhiman. He has no abhiman. He has no pride. He gives respect to everyone. Jive Samana Dibe, because Jani Krishna Adishtan. He understands that Krishna is in the body of everyone. This is the way, he says in the next verse, we should chant the holy name. Ehi Matahana Jai Krishna Nama Loy Shri Krishna Charani Tana Prema Upajoy Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. E Matahana Jai Krishna Lama Loy. If you chant the holy name in this way, and Sri Krishna Charani Tandra Prema Upajoy, definitely you'll get Krishna Prem, you'll get love for Krishna's lotus feet. The Chaitanya Bhagavat describes, Aise Vaishnava Dharma Shabare Pranati, Sehi Dharma Dvaji Jayate Nahi Rati, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Aise Vaishnava Dharma Sabare Pranati. This is Vaishnav Dharma. They see Krishna behind everything. They see Krishna in everyone's body. They don't see a conspiracy behind COVID. They're not worried about the Indian government or the American government, even though they may be doing some bad things. They see that even if they are doing bad things, Krishna ultimately is behind them. Right? And people, they have their karma. The karma's come. Now we have to pay our debt. It's a time to pay the dues in the world today. We're seeing this because it's coronavirus. So, Aise Vaishnava Dharma, this is the nature of a Vaishnav. Sabare Pranati, they give respect to everyone. Say Dharmadvaji Jar, but someone who's just a Dharmadvaji. What is a Dharmadvaji? They're waving the flag of Dharma. They're a hypocrite, a Dharmadvaji. They're dressing like a Vaishnav. Maybe even they're chanting 16 rounds and some kind of japa, but they don't see Krishna behind everything. And because they don't see Krishna behind everything, they can't offer respect to everyone. And those Dharmadvaji say, Dharmadvaji ja iti nahi rati. They don't have any taste for this. They can't go and respect everyone. Rather, they see we have to have justice, and this is wrong. And these leaders, why should they be doing this? And they make a big noise because they're seeing some other cause. Bhayam dvitiya abhinivesata shat. The 11th canto of the Bhagavatam says very emphatically that if you see something separate from Krishna, if you see the coronavirus is separate from Krishna, then definitely you're going to be full of fear. and you're going to be full of anger, and you're going to want to be chastising everyone. So the example of the Nirduta Kasai we can give is Ranti Dev. In the 9th canto, chapter 21 of the Bhagavatam, it's described, Viya vitasya dadato labdam bubukshika niskinchanasya dirasya saktumbasya siddhata. That Ranti Dev, he never endeavored to earn anything. He just saw everything as by the arrangement of Krishna. He would enjoy, just like a chataka bird, whatever was sent by providence. He would accept that. And whatever he would give, if he has some guests who would come, then he would give them everything. And sometimes Ranti Dev, he would just fast because he would just depend on Krishna. Nobody's bringing me anything. Krishna's not bringing anything. Once for 48 days. Oh my God. 48 days. Ranti Dev didn't eat, nor did he drink any water. Now, modern scientists will tell us this is impossible. That you can go, how many days can you go without water? Does anybody know? 0. That's I thought it was even 2 or 3 days. Yeah, without food, you can go for 30, 40 days. So how is it possible, though? He's not even drinking water. Just something else keeping him alive. Raghunath Das Goswami was only taking a little palmful, a little spoon of buttermilk every day, and it was keeping him alive. But that wasn't keeping him alive. What was keeping him alive was the holy name. Krishna's in that name, and that'll keep us alive. So once he fasted for 48 days, and then someone brought him some water and some very nice foodstuffs made with milk and ghee. And then he and his family sit down, and they're just about ready to eat. And then just at that time, a Brahmin guest arrived, showed up. Tasmai samvyabhajat sonyam adritya shridayanvita harim savatya sambhashyan sabhuktva pragavodvija. But Ranti Dev, he has this firm conviction. He sees Krishna everywhere. This is the nature of the Uttam, of an Uttam disciple. He sees Krishna everywhere because he's following what he's heard from his Gurudev. He's practicing it. He doesn't fall down and go back to thinking like the non-devotees who see mundane causes behind everything. But Ranti Dev, Prabhupada translates this verse, because Ranti Dev perceived the presence of the Supreme Godhead everywhere and in every living entity, he received the guest with faith and respect and gave him a share of the food. Then the Brahmin guest ate his share and went away. So then they divided what was left amongst the family, and Ranti Dev is getting ready to eat again, and all of a sudden the Sudra shows up. And Ranti Dev saw the Sudra in connection with the Lord. Oh, Krishna's come in the form of the Sudra, Atiti Bhagavan. So King Ranti Dev gave him again a share of the food. Then the Sudra went away, and then a very low-class person came. And this low-class person, he was surrounded by his fans. He had a following. They were all kukurs, dogs. He's surrounded by dogs, and he said, Maharaj, I'm very hungry, and my dogs are also very hungry. Please give us something to eat. So what would you do? You're going to die. You haven't eaten for 48 days. Your family hasn't eaten. There's your wife, there's your daughter, your children. What are you going to do? What the Bhagavatam says, that Ranti Dev, how did he behave? Sa adritya vasishtam yad bahumana paraskritam tachchat datva namaschakre swabhya swapattaye vibhu. That Ranti Dev at that time, Namachakra, he offered his obeisance, swabhya, even to the dogs, and swapataye, to the master of the dogs. And he gave whatever food he had left to all of them. And he offered all of them his obeisances, not just because, oh, I'm supposed to do this. They told me in the IYF that I'm supposed to offer obeisances like this. And it wasn't like that. But Ranti Dev, it's real. It's coming from his heart because he sees Krishna in the form of, in the body of everyone. Oh, Krishna's in this person's body, and he's coming, and this person's hungry, and the dogs are hungry. So he offered obeisances to the dogs. And then at that time, all that's left, paniya matram, was a little drinking water. That's all that was left there, just enough to satisfy one person. Rantidev was about to drink it, and at that time a Chandala came there. And the Chandala said, Maharaj, please, I know I'm really low-born, I'm really bad, but I'm really thirsty. Please give me some drinking water. And so then Rantidev began to speak very sweet words. Prabhupada writes in a purport, he says, Maharaj Rantidev's words were like amrit or nectar. And therefore, aside from rendering bodily service to an aggrieved person, by his words alone, the king could save the life of anyone who might hear him. They're amrit, they're nectar, because he's feeling this in his heart. He sees Krishna's in the heart of this person. He's not agitated. What are they doing? Oh my God, I didn't know this person was going to come and stay in our house today. This is really a big inconvenience. This is really terrible. They're not thinking like that. They're seeing Krishna's hand behind everything. And how can they see Krishna's hand behind everything? It's not an intellectual adjustment. But it comes when we hear Shastra, and that hearing means Shravanadhikar. We spoke before in one of our first sessions about this. Pranipat Prashna Seva. We have to render service to the message and to the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita that we're hearing. Shushusho Shadadanasha Vasudeva Kata Ruchi Shamahat Sevaya Vipra Punyatirtana Sevana. And if we render service to that personality, then that message that we get becomes amrit. It becomes like nectar. And you can keep people alive just by speaking to them. Instead of your words being so harsh that your words pierce everybody's heart and causes so much pain, and you're criticizing everyone, you're considering yourself to be the judge of everyone. Rantidev wasn't the judge of it. He didn't say, why are you coming here trying to take something from me and my poor family? But he saw Krishna's behind everything. The next verse describes Rantidev's words. Nakameham gatam ishvarat param astarda yuktam apunarbhavamba artim prapadye kila deha bhajam antastito yena bhavantu dukkha. He says, I don't pray to the Lord. Nakameham gatam ishvarat param. I don't pray to the Supreme Lord, Astardi, Yuktam, that I can get these Astasiddhis, these mystic 8 perfections of yoga. I don't pray to him, Apunarbhavamba, to become free from birth and death. He says, Artam prapadya kila deha bhajam. Let me stay. My prayer is, I want to stay here. I want to stay here amongst all the living entities. And antastito yena bhavanta dukkha. I want to suffer. The suffering that they're supposed to suffer, let me suffer that. This is Rantidev. This is the Nirdutta Kasai. Shutrit, Shamo Gata, Paribramascha, Dainyam Klama, Shoka Vishada Moaha, Save Nivrita, Kripanasya Jantor, Jijiva Sor Jiva Jalarpanam Me. And he says, by offering my water to maintain the life of this poor Chandala who's struggling to live, now I've become free from all hunger, thirst, fatigue, all problems, all lamentation, all illusion. Everything has gone away in this way. And Rantidev, at that time, he gave his last portion of the water to the Chandala with no hesitation. And then an amazing thing happened. Suddenly, all that Brahman and the Sudra and the dogs and the dog eater and all these persons, they manifested the form of the demigods. And when Rantidev saw that, he offered obeisances to them also. But he offered obeisances with the same amount of respect that he offered to the dogs. Oh, you're a dog. Krishna's in your heart. And he offered obeisances. Oh, you're Indra. Krishna's in your heart. And he offered obeisances. He didn't see the Indra as being greater than the dog. This is the nature of the Uttama Vaishnav. He offered obeisances to them, described, because he saw them in connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the nature of an Uttama, whereas a Kanishta, he also gives some respect, But as we spoke from Jiva Goswami's purport, the Kanisha disciple gives respect based on some mundane calculation, based on how much money someone has, or based on how much social respect someone gives, or how they're dressed. Oh, this person's a sannyasi. I should give respect to this person. This person's a Mataji. Oh my God, get out of my way. They don't want to respect the Mataji, but we want to respect the sannyasi. But Ranti Dev is not like that. Ranti Dev, he didn't ask the dogs, which one of you are Mataji dogs? He just offered obeisances to all the dogs. And then when the demigods came, yeah, I'll offer obeisances to you too. He sees everyone in an equal way. That's different than the Madhyamadhikari. We can't imitate the behavior of the Uttama, but we should understand the nature of the Uttama. He's not trying to please everyone. Sarva bhuteshu ya pashyat bhagavat bhavam atmana bhutani bhagavat atmani esha bhagavatotama. The Uttam, he sees Krishna everywhere and he understands everything in connection with Krishna. So that's an Adutta Kashai. There's no material impressions, but still they have a material body. And then there's Bhagavat Parshada Deha Prapta. And I'd like to take you on a little journey. In the book Karnananda, is a wonderful book. Karnananda was written by the poet Yadunath Das, and he was directed by Srila Hemlata Thakurani, the daughter of Srinivas Acharya, to write this book. Sri Hemlata Thakurani was a great guru in our line. And Yadunandan Das, he wrote this Karnananda for the satisfaction of all the devotees. So Srinivas Acharya once, he was staying in Banabhishnupur with his two wives. He had two wives. He was staying in the home of one of his disciples. That disciple's name was Raj Bihambir. He was the king. And one day, Srinivas Acharya, he was sitting there chanting, and something kind of sort of happened. Something that we all have some aspiration for to happen to us someday. Suddenly, he lost consciousness. And for 2 days, there was no sign of life. They were going and shaking him. Guru Maharaj, Pati, his wives were crying and shaking him. And he wasn't regaining external consciousness whatsoever. He was completely absorbed in Leela from chanting the holy name. Just at that time, the devotees started thinking about Ramachandra Kaviraj, who was a great associate of Srinivas Acharya. And Ramachandra Kaviraj came to that place. And by the time he arrived, it had been several days. And they didn't know. Srinivas hadn't been eating anything. Maybe if he hasn't already left his body, he's definitely going to leave his body. He can't, how long can he go on to survive? But Ramachandra Kaviraj was, although his body was different from the body of his guru Srinivas Acharya, that difference was only external. Internally, he's one in soul. And Ramachandra Kaviraj is the example of an Uttam Sishya who's, as we'll hear, who's Bhagavat Parshada Deha Prapta, who's someone who's obtained their spiritual body. So wherever Ramachandra Kaviraj was at, he was always aware of the inner state of his Gurudev's mind. On one occasion, Srinivas Acharya, he told the devotees, this is described in Karnananda. Moragane Jelaibe Ramachandra Mata She Hamara Gane Hoiba Mahata Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Moragane Jailabi Ramachandra Mata. My understanding and opinion is the same as Ramachandra's. There's no difference between the two of us. Srinivas Acharya, he said that Ramachandra Narottam Noyana Yugala.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Volume.
Okay, let's see. Thank you. Now I think it's probably really loud. Ramachandra Narottam Noyana Yugala. Netabina Sharirada Shakala Nishvala. So Srinivas he told the devotees that Ramachandra Kaviraj and Narottam Das Thakur are like my two eyes. And so both of them are identical. So Ramachandra, he went out to Vishnupur before anybody could be sent to bring him. He understood that I needed to go there. And when he arrived there, Maharaj Bihambir was beside himself, was very, very distressed. What's happening to our Gurudev? And he said, don't worry. Gurudev's soon going to return. Let me go. I'm going to find out what Leela he's enjoying. And so then Ramachandra Kaviraj sat down next to Srinivasacharya and he began meditating. And Ramachandra Kaviraj, in his vision, he left his body. This is Bhagavat Parshada Deha Prapta. He attained the Deha, or the body of an eternal associate of the Lord. And in his meditation, he realized, first of all, his Swarup. My name now is Karuna Manjari. And he wasn't thinking that I'm a big important man. Now I'm a young girl doing service. And he saw his Gurudev, Srinivas, as Mani Manjari. And he saw something's going on. The Srimati Radhika had lost her Besara, her nose ring. And everybody was searching for it. And at that time, Mani Manjari, who's actually Srinivasacharya in Gaura Leela, found that nose ornament. Or actually, Karuna Manjari found that nose ornament and gave it to his guru, Mani Manjari. And then Mani Manjari gave it to his guru, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who's Guna Manjari, gave it to Guna Manjari, and Guna Manjari gave it to Rupa Manjari, who's Rupa Goswami, whose disappearance day is today. And then Rupa Manjari gave it to Srimati Radharani just at the perfect time when Srimati Radharani had finished getting dressed and she put her earrings in already and she was looking for the nose ring. She reached out for the nose ring and Rupa Manjari came with it just at that exact moment. That's Anugatya Moi Seva, serving in such a particular way. So this is Ramachandra Kaviraj. He understood the inner mind of his Gurudev. And Srimati Radharani was very, very pleased. And getting that nose ring at that time, she gave her some betel leaf that she partially chewed as a reward. And then suddenly, Srinivasacharya, all of a sudden, his eyes open and Harivo, Harivo, Harivo. He starts jumping up and down and then rolling on the ground and crying. And then Ramachandra Kaviraj also, Harivo, Harivo. And he started rolling on the ground and crying. And then everybody was, what's happened? In Guru Maharaj's hand, there's some betel leaf. And it has this amazing fragrance. How is it possible? So this is Bhagavat Parshada Deha Prapta, the topmost Uttam Sishya. And this is possible. We should understand something about these different types of disciples. And we should aspire for this. And if we simply cultivate this qualification of Atma Samarpana, of Saranagati, of complete surrender, then we can come to this platform. We'll speak something more about this later on and how it is that Gurudev enters into the heart of the disciple. But I'd like to stop now. We have a few minutes left. And I'd like to see maybe Roshan. Roshan is listening very nice today, I think. You like today, I hope, Roshan? Maybe some of the devotees have some reflections they'd like to share or something. I'd be happy to hear from some of the devotees now. If anybody has any comments or reflections. I hope you got something that'll make me encouraged. Okay, I'm just going to call Roshan. Tell me, what did you collect anything today? Did you win any prize? What are you walking away
Hare
with?
Krishna, Prabhu.
What impression did you get from the discussion today?
Usually, first thing that you focused is that we have to always aspire for the Uttam. Means to become a first class devotee, we don't have to stay at the same position for our whole life. And for that, we have to study the Shastras. So that is the most important point.
Very good. And that's such a wonderful thing. You're so very, very fortunate, because many people, they don't have time to study Shastra, or even if they have time, they don't have good association for it. Or even if maybe they have some association, but there may not be a good plan for it. You've got all three. You've got good association, you have some time for it, and there's a good plan for it also. Tukaram Prabhu has his hand up. Thank you, Roshan Prabhu. Tukaram Prabhu, you have some reflection you want to share?
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, I was thinking like when
It's really hard to hear you. I can't hardly hear you at all.
Hare Krishna.
That's a little better.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So Prabhuji, I was contemplating that when we were discussing topics related with the Kanishta Adhikari and Madhyama Adhikari, so I was able to connect better, like because because so we have that experience, like kind of. But when it comes to discussion about Uttama Adhikari, so things are becoming. It's not like it's hard to believe like how it happens, or and ever will be coming to that platform. Is it really possible? So
There's a few devotees here in the room with me. They can hardly hear you. I don't know why, but it was very, very hard to hear your voice.
is it clear now, Prabhuji?
No. Try again. I just heard something loud.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it's about the same. Anyway, go ahead and try what to do.
Hare Krishna. I don't know what. Hare Krishna.
You just try to speak really loud. Maybe that'll make up something.
Just a minute.
I can't hear you now at all. When the mic's right in front of your mouth, I can hear something.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Is it audible now, Prabhuji?
Yeah, now we can hear you. But we can't see you. And we see your Swarup.
I was telling that when we were discussing topics about Madhyama Adhikari and Kanishta Adhikari, so we were able to connect it better. But Uttama Adhikari platform, like it's not hard to believe it. We know that it's possible, but for us, it's quite kind of at the present moment quite kind of impractical. So, and you told that that one who hears the holy name gives up the tendency to correct others,
Yes.
and see Krishna behind everything, even behind pandemic or whatever problems that are coming in our life. So he doesn't complain anyone, nor he tries to correct anyone, but he understands that everything is actually done by Krishna, and thus he remains fearless.
Yes. Yes, that's what we were speaking about. You had some comment about that? Maybe I've lost you.
Yeah, and you also gave the example that how Gaur Kishodas Babaji, so when the boys were stoning him, so he was not seeing the boys, he was seeing the ultimate Krishna, ultimate cause Krishna. So this is the vision of Uttama Adhikari. At the same time, we cannot imitate it, of course.
Yes.
And like it happens quite a while, like when we are practicing Krishna consciousness, staying in ashram, or so we have a tendency to find faults with others, especially find faults with management, or find faults with situations. So we blame our situations, but then we have to understand. And the other day, one devotee was telling that Krishna has arranged each and every moment for us to become Krishna conscious now. It's so whatever problems we are facing is actually Krishna's arrangement, and we need to develop the maturity that we can understand it's planned by Krishna for my development, for my progress. But that vision is very hard to cultivate.
Yes. And this is Srila Prabhupada's point, that if we don't associate with Uttam Vaishnavas, and what does it mean to associate with an Uttam Vaishnava? It means that we're associating with someone who reminds us that Krishna is behind everything. if we just want to be comfortable and we want to blame, it's more comfortable for us to blame the other brahmachari. He was talking so late at night, and that's why he couldn't get up from Mangal Artik this morning. The guy's a nonsense, and we're blaming some other person. If it's more comfortable for us to do that, how are we going to make advancement? And I can tell you very honestly, I've been around the devotees, been living in the temple since 1982. I've been around the devotees something since 1977. And this is the difference between someone who's going to make advancement and someone who won't, very bluntly. If those devotees who are always complaining about other people and trying to fight about this and trying to change things in external ways, they don't make advancement. But devotees who tolerate and are very humble, they make advancement. And they just don't want to fight back. It doesn't mean that we should be like a doormat and we should just accept someone abusing us. And certainly doesn't mean that we should accept, if we see someone abusing women or children or something, that we just, anyway, it's Krishna's arrangement. That's also a sinful activity. We have to see, we have to do something. But for myself, tatenu kambam susamikshamano. This, when we come to the platform that I begin to realize, I begin to see, I deserve this. Then that's when we begin to make advancement. And this is the nature of an Uttam Sishya. I think this is relevant for us. Because if that's a disciple. The disciple is someone who hears from Guru. It's not just Konafanka Guru, there's a saying in Oriya, that the Guru spits in my ear, and I who cares what his message is. But we have to live with the message of Gurudev. We have to contemplate on it. And we have to be living it at every moment. And what's the behind this thing? What's the cause of this? And based on what we're reading in Shastra, what we're hearing from Gurudev, we have to try to apply that. That's very, very relevant for us. And if we don't do that, we're not going to make advancement. It's just that simple. Is that helpful, Prabhuji? I don't know if you had a question exactly or...
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Yeah. But Prabhuji, I have a question. Like, shouldn't we, like, when we are seeing that certain things are not going on nicely, so one way to accept it is like it's all Krishna's arrangement. But then we become lazy and we don't want to change the things, when, especially when things are in our hand. So in that case, how should we behave?
It reminds me of a conversation with Srila Prabhupada, some devotees, some bad thing happened. I forget what it was. Maybe someone stole some money or something. And one of the devotees said, anyway, Prabhupada, it was Krishna's arrangement. And that was the wrong thing to say to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada chastised me and said, is it Krishna's arrangement or is it your nonsense? Prabhupada said, it's your nonsense. So of course it's Krishna's arrangement. Right? Everything is Krishna's arrangement. But I should be thinking, if you think, well, anyway, all the IYF devotees, they left and they're all in Maya now. Anyway, it's not my fault. I have nothing to do with me. If you're thinking like that, that's your nonsense. We have some responsibility. At the same time, we, as Prabhupada prayed when Boston Harbor, he said, my dear Lord, you sent me here, but what can I do? I can't do anything. I'm so weak and tiny. Only if you make them hear, only if you make them listen, will they be able to hear. So both things are there. We want to take responsibility for it, but at the same time, ultimately, it's really in Krishna's hands. And we have to depend on Krishna and not depend on our so-called expertise in giving lectures or leading kirtan or managing things or doing this or that. We have to depend on Krishna and show devotees that example. That's the most important thing. Who cares if we have a society of everybody chanting 16 rounds? Who cares? Who cares if we have a society of everybody following 4 principles? Who cares? Who cares if they're all going to Mangal Artik? Who cares if they're distributing books? Who cares if they read the books? But if they don't understand that Krishna's behind everything, if they haven't come to that very simple level of understanding that Krishna's behind everything, those are all good things. They're chanting, they're following principles, going to the programs and things. They're all, in one sense, they're like zeros, and there's so many zeros, but you put a 1 in front of it. But we have to see Krishna's hand in things. So how can we do that? We have to associate with devotees who see that. And for me, this is one of the saddest things that I see in the pandemic today. I see a lot of Srila Prabhupada's great warriors. And now that they're seeing mundane causes behind things. And they're advertising that this is caused because of the leaders in ISKCON or because of this and this. And it's not because of them, it's because of Krishna. And by advertising this mundane cause of things, then in effect, we're giving poison to people. And then they're going to also start thinking like that. Well, we need to tell everybody, this is because of your karma. This is because we've killed so many animals. We've done so many sins in this world. That's why this pandemic is there. And for the devotees, it's there because it's a great test for us to see how strong is our faith, to see that Krishna is behind everything. And as you commented, it's a fact. You're being very straightforward. You're being very humble, very honest. It's not an easy thing. It's not easy to see Krishna's hand behind everything else. It's a lot easier to become angry with Roshan. Why is a bog offering late, you nonsense rascal? You didn't do this or that. It's easier to see that particular person. But ultimately, we don't hate even that person who made that mistake. We see Krishna's behind it. And they're a devotee. Okay, they're covered over by something. And furthermore, what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says in this article, which we printed some time back, we made an article called Reforming the Reformer. It was from a 1932 article in the Harmonist. I've got it in front of me now, I just opened it up. His point is that when we see Krishna behind everything, then we're no longer worried about changing people. And at that point, then we can be the source of change. We can be Krishna's instrument. Krishna famously tells Arjuna, Nimitta matram bhavasavya sachin. So that comes when we become Krishna's instrument, when we give up thinking ourselves the doer, when we give up seeing fault in other people, and Krishna inspires us within in the heart. And therefore, my point being that it's not that if the temple president or the IYF leader or whatever chastises us, it's not that we say, Prabhu, you know, you're really in Maya. You should see Krishna behind everything. Don't blame me, right? Don't blame Krishna. Don't blame Anupayani Radha. It's Krishna behind everything. They'll say like that. But that's not the proper attitude either. Is that okay, Prabhuji? Bhakti is such a very subtle thing. And unless we become subtle and think about it, we're not going to be able to advance in bhakti. Let's see here. There's a couple of comments here I'd like to read from ISKCON Bhubaneswar Das Prabhu. ISKCON Bhubaneswar Prabhu says, from previous class, devotee has the power to convert Brahma Rakshasas, a devotee, just by their presence. In this class, without studying Shastras deeply, we cannot develop strong Shraddha. Very good, thank you. And he says, I may not know that I may be a Brahma Rakshasa, but I should associate with higher devotees so that I can become a devotee. Yes, I'm worse than a Brahma Rakshasa. At least a Brahma Rakshasa was a Brahmin before. I was born in India. But I think if once a week I can see Tukaram Prabhu online and Amritesh Gaur and get their association, and I can recite Shastra. Gurudev used to say to us that the function of the guru is to speak, and he speaks Sabda Brahma. The function of the disciple is to repeat what he's heard and to listen, to hear. And then the guru tells him, now you speak. And what does the disciple speak? He repeats what he's heard. And Guru Maharaj said that kirtan of the disciple is another name for Shravan, for hearing. So for me, this is a very wonderful thing, to be able to repeat what I've heard from acharyas, and it's very, very purifying for me. So being able to see Tukaram Prabhu and Roshan Prabhu also, and all the devotees here. Anybody else have any reflections or comments? Anything else you'd like to share? ISKCON Bhubaneswar says something very deep. Ha, ha, ha. Okay? That's a very deep comment. And we see ISKCON Bhubaneswar's picture there too. He's very, it's actually Srila Prabhupada. Okay, anybody else with anything? Leela Purushottam Prabhu, do you have anything? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and stop. Or Dilip or Sangram or Satyam, anybody? Leela, you have to unmute yourself. You're still muted.
Yes, I was not allowed. Now they allowed me to unmute. Hare Krishna. I have one thing. What I really like when I remember all these classes behind that.
Uh-oh, I can't hear you now. He's muted again.
You know.
Okay, now I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I really like is that we are going through the descriptions of different levels of devotees, like Kanishta Adhikar, Madhyam Adhikar, Uttama Adhikar. But now in our context of these classes, I really like that we always use the term Kanishta Shishya, Madhyam Shishya, Uttam Shishya. So that's far out. It always reminds me that we will always remain disciples. It's not that, oh, when I'm there, then I'm guru and whatever and teacher and no. I might be Uttam. I might have Uttam Adhikar. I may desire to have that Adhikar, but still I will be Uttam Shishya. So that's something that came to me today. And I was really happy.
That's very beautiful. And in the same way that the Uttam Shishya sees everything, sees Krishna behind everything. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he said once, I often quote this, he said that I pray that I may see my Gurudev in every person. I may see him in every animal. I may see him in every tree, in every bush, in every mountain, every stone, every river. I pray that I may see my Gurudev, he said, in every year, every month, every week, every day, every hour, and every second. Because if I don't see my Gurudev constantly, everywhere in all things, then I may fall prey to the bad desire to become Guru myself. So we're always a Sishya. We see Gurudev is there. Some people, I've heard devotees tell me, well, Prabhuji, I'm not really qualified to be Guru or anything, but there's nobody else there to do it. So I just have to go ahead and do it. But there's always someone there to do it. Gurudev is always there. But if Gurudev comes to that disciple and says, I want you to do this, then we have to. Gurudev hasn't come to me with that order. and Guru Maharaj once told us, even if Gurudev comes to you with that order, then you should say, Gurudev, I don't have the strength. But if you give me the strength to do it, then I'll follow your order. So those two things have to be there, authorization and qualification, aqua.
Yeah. And also one more thing, just what I want to, it's like something that I want to express, that because in the beginning you made a point which is very like fundamental, I would say, that it was in the form of quote of Srila Prabhupada, that if we want to stay on the progressive path of our devotional service, then we have to desire to associate with the advanced devotees, with more advanced devotees than we are, and hearing from them and like this. So, and there was specified that word that we want to have the association of Uttam devotee and hearing from him. So now then there is a little trap in my even in my experience of the history, what I remember I was going through in that regard of having desire to have the association of Uttam devotee, that when you as a Kanishta and lower try to identify other devotee as the Uttam, then it's like it's destined to fail. Actually, it's how can you? Where is your power to make that statement? Oh, this is Uttama, and I will associate with him. So my experience.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so just I will just finish the talk. So my realization from what I went through was that the only safe path is to have that sincere prayer, to have that association, and leave the responsibility for it to happen, leave for Krishna. Just having the honest, sincere desire to have such an association, and then Krishna will arrange it for us. Krishna will always send us proper association.
I really appreciate your comment, because inherent in your comment is the understanding that we're not the seer, and the fault that if I try to appoint myself as a seer, and I'm going to say this person's an Uttama, and it's a problem we see in the society. Over the many years, we've seen many devotees, many disciples say, my Gurudev's an Uttama, and maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But you just have a bunch of people running around who really don't know if he's Uttama or not, and just proclaiming that to everybody. And then when he wasn't actually an Uttama, which happens sometimes, and it was proven, and the person even had problems and fell down, then there was a big problem for the society. So what is the solution for that? We should, rather than be looking for a person, rather than being in a personality cult, looking for a Superman, a superhero, let's look for good qualities. Let's look for good kirtan. Let's look for good Krishna katha. Let's look for good prasadam. Let's look for association of devotees who see Krishna behind everything and not see Maya behind everything. That's really what we're looking for. And then Krishna will reveal that devotee to us. But at that point, and kind of implicit, I think, in your comments is the idea that better we don't advertise that. If we do realize that that's the problem, if we do feel someone's an Uttama, and we don't really know, because I'm not an Uttama, so I don't know, but I really may have faith that this person's an Uttama, then better I keep quiet about that. Because if I start telling everybody, then they're going to, if I start going around saying, Lila Purushottam, he's definitely an Uttama, then there's going to be somebody in check and say, that guy? Are you serious? Do you know? And then he's going to start telling me all terrible things about you or something, right? Because he's envious. And that's going to hurt my heart. And it may hurt my bhakti. And it will hurt that devotee's bhakti. So therefore, Gopayad Guru Atmana, we should hide our guru. We shouldn't advertise. I think I lost you there, Lila Purushottam Prabhu. There's a comment here from Satyam. He says, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, when we are trying to achieve something and we fail again and again, then we're trying hard again to achieve it. So in that situation, what should be our mindset? That Krishna does not want to achieve that goal? Or should we keep trying hard to achieve that goal and should think that achieving the goal is Krishna's will? What should be our mindset? We have to have guru. If we don't have guru, how are we going to be convinced? My Guru Maharaj, many years ago, he gave me an instruction. He wrote me a letter. He told me personally, he said, I want you to make a magazine. It's Krishna Katamrita magazine. You make this magazine. And I was trying. I didn't even have a typewriter. I had a pen, and I had a pad of paper. That's all that I had. I didn't have a recorder. I had no way. I had no money. I had no experience in publishing. I didn't know what to do. And it was really, really, really hard. And I was trying and trying because Guru Maharaj had told me. And finally, I went to see Guru Maharaj. And I asked the same question basically you're saying here. I said, Guru Maharaj, I don't understand. I said, I feel strongly that you want this magazine. I feel that our acharyas want this magazine. I feel like Krishna wants this magazine. It's a very good thing to have some Krishna katha. I feel strong about that. But what I don't understand, if Krishna wants it, if you want it, if Prabhupada wants it, then why is it so hard? And Guru Maharaj sat back and made this face and looked at me. And then he told me, he said, Gopal is testing you. And I have to say, it's a fact. Krishna was testing us. How sincere are we to do that? But we kept trying. And how do we have the conviction? You're asking, how can we have the conviction to know that this is Krishna's desire? Because Gurudev has told us. Because I went in that room with Guru Maharaj and I asked him, and he was very clear with me. And he wrote me in a letter, and he told me in the last lecture, he spoke to me in the last lecture he gave before he left this world in Bhubaneswar. He said, I pray on this day that Madhavananda will always continue this magazine, this very important and valuable service, he said. So because I have that instruction, I'm confident. And then it may be very, very difficult. It definitely will be difficult. It's been difficult so many times, but I have conviction that it's Gurudev's desire. And I have conviction that I'm being tested by Krishna, by Gopal. And there's going to be so many tests. And I really strongly think, to go back to again, that this pandemic is a great test for all of us. Don't become bitter. Don't become angry. Don't blame other people. Blame ourselves. Go deep on our bhajan. So I hope that helps, Sachin Prabhu. Is that okay? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
It's a very nice comment question. Thank you. Anybody else here in the room with anything? Krishna Kun has something.
I have first of all, thank you very much for relating my favorite story, Ramachandra Kaviraj and Srinivasacharya. This really has been my favorite story for what I am aspiring for as a disciple. And today I understood why. I never understood it before, why exactly. So thank you. But the verse that you quoted, Diksha Kali, Bhakta Kariyatma Samapam, that verse says, and you so nicely explained that this only happens, we only become accepted as good as Krishna if we actually fully surrender. And I want to ask a very stupid question, a very neophyte question, but I really want an answer. How can we overcome, is one of these how-to questions, right? Everybody has them for many years, maybe decades. How is it possible that so many times at the time of initiation, even outside the time of initiation, so many times we tell Gurudev, we tell Krishna that, okay, now I'm really giving you everything. You please take me. You please just make me your servant. And then again, we just fall from that platform, and this controlling and enjoying mentality is just so deeply ingrained that even, as Krishna says, against our will, we act on our anarthas. So what is our hope to attain this full surrender?
I'm going to say something you've heard me say 1,000 times. Guru Maharaj used to often say, your only qualification is your disqualification. We have to embrace our fallen position. As we were hearing last night about the Tunadapi Sunicchena verse, this humility comes after the second verse of Shikshashtakam, which indicates our fallen position. And when we identify with that fallen position, when we practice that yoga of lamentation and crying in that way, and this is my unfortunate position, then we attract mercy, because ultimately, to be fully surrendered, we have to give up the enjoying spirit. And how can we give up that enjoying spirit? And therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes the song Gopinath, that Gopinath, I have no independence. I can't do this on my own. Only you can save me. Only Gurudev can save me. But we have to be honest with them. And that honesty means that we have to practice this Bishad yoga, or the yoga of lamentation. Or Bishad, another meaning we comment sometimes. Bish means poison, and Ad means to accept. It means that the yoga or the connection with God by accepting the poison of our situation, the poisonous reality, the bitter reality that I'm not so advanced at all, and that I'm really, really suffering. And that's a good thing. I don't know, that's the only answer I have. Can you think of some other thought, Krishna Kun?
What is 624, Bhagavad Gita 624? How is it starting, that verse? The second or third line is Prabhava Kaman, Sankalpa Prabhavan Kaman. That we have this, it seems that we have this Sankalpa to enjoy. And even when we try to give it up, it's haunting us. And it's just simply because of misidentification. We actually don't identify as a servant of Guru and Krishna, even after hearing it millions of times. Sanishchayena Yoktavyo Yoga Sankalpa Prabhavas Kamam. That's the one. That this karma, all these desires, they just come from mental conception. But why? What is giving the prabhava, the power to these mental conceptions, misconceptions? is this sankalpa that we have, this conviction, this goal. This is actually our goal. Our goal is not prema. Our goal is not service.
So another answer to that question too is that Guru Maharaj used to say that we have to get the merciful kick of Lord Nityananda. We have to get the chastisement of the sadhu. And that chastisement will come when we're being honest. When we come before Nityananda, when we say, you know, I'm doing this, and then we get a good hard kick. But as I heard Krishna Kun saying the other day to somebody, that she's quoting Shiva Ramaraj, that if you tell Guru, if you hide your sickness and you say, yeah, everything's okay, Guru Maharaj says, how are things going? Oh yeah, everything is good. But you don't tell your real problem, your real situation, then he doesn't know what medicine to give you. And he may give you the wrong medicine. So we have to be honest. And that's Bishad Yoga. I hope that's some help. Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and stop there. Tukaram Prabhu, maybe I should discuss with you a little something about tomorrow night. At least we can just chat on WhatsApp or something after this. Is that okay? Okay.
Yes,
So thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol, Vanchakalpadarubhishcha Kripasindhabhyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Nandakoti Vaishnava Binda ki jai.